Welcome to the Better Business Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Zelan. Join me week after week as I interview high-level entrepreneurs on their journey to success, both in business and personal development. Each week presents new stories to learn from and new ideas on how to run a better business. Stay updated with all the guests we'll have by subscribing to this podcast. Welcome to another episode of Better Business with Austin Zelan. Today we have special guest Kayla Cardona. She's a real estate professional. We've got a lot to talk about today, so I'm very excited to dive into this and just learning from her a little bit more about her business, how she runs her business, how she's scaled her business, because just like many of you, at a certain point in time, she was just starting out in business. And so she has gone past that into the place where she's been able to scale her business. And we want a little bit of that wisdom for ourselves on this episode to learn how we can also run a better business. So Kayla, thank you so much for joining us today. Very excited to have you. Can you just start out by sharing a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey? Maybe some of these people know you, maybe they don't, but where did you start and how did you go from beginner entrepreneur to where you're at today?
Yeah. So, I had a very humble beginning. I really, truly come from nothing. I don't know if you know much about my story, but I got kicked out of my house at the age of 17 pregnant, and I was living in shelters. I was homeless, and I have quite a story. But what really started my journey on that was I first started in the business world. The beauty world. I was a cosmetologist. I tried going to college. That didn't work out for me. I went to beauty school, and I became a cosmetologist and then eventually a barber for about 10 years. And so I come from a background of either very, very poor or like on Section 8 housing, WIC, food stamps, all the things. And then I had I had a parent that was in the corporate world. So it was either they're very, very poor or a lower class, middle class, if that makes sense. So the mindset on money and entrepreneurship and running businesses was quite different. So I had to literally learn everything on my own. So I started off in the beauty industry, and that was kind of the beginning of my journey as far as understanding how to build a business, run a business with numbers, create a book of business, and clientele and marketing yourself and getting clients and all the things. So it took me quite some time to just learn on my own, because I was never taught anything growing up. We never spoke about money in the household. It was you didn't speak about money. And if you did, it was very negative, and it was always fights over it, things like that. So I already started off with that type of mentality. And that was very, very negative. So to answer your questions, to give you a little bit of backstory of how I got to where I'm at today. So I started off with that. So that was great. Now I got to a point in my life where I knew I was meant for more than just cutting hair. I was like, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. So real estate got in the picture because I had a very high-end clientele in my hair business, and they kind of all just started telling me that I would be really good as a real estate agent. Mind you, I didn't own a laptop. I didn't even know how to use email. Everything was text. I wrote down my schedule. Like, I was very old school about it. And I was like, you know what? Let me look into this. And then I started getting introduced to the more luxury world. And then I was like, okay, now I want a piece of this. So I went to school, got my license. And while I got my license, I became an assistant for a top producer agent on a very small team. So I was still cutting hair, still bartending. I did that for about 10 years. Like I said, I lived on my own when I was 17 with my son, single mom. So I had to, make ends meet, right? I usually worked 2-3 jobs all at once. So I was still cutting hair, bartending, and assisting. So eventually I got to a point where I started making money that I've never seen before. So I started kind of letting go of my hair clientele. And then I got to a point where I became an assistant to an actual agent on the team. 6 months in, I got a huge opportunity. I was reached out to by Netflix. So that opened a whole brand new door, because now I'm entering into the luxury space. So I joined the Oppenheim group, and I just basically had to start all over because I had no lead generation. I was still a newer real estate agent. And then a couple months ago, I actually sold my biggest sale in my career, which was $24.5 million.
Wow. That's
yeah.
awesome.
In Corona Del Mar. Thank you very much. It's actually the biggest sale in our Newport Beach office. I know that my broker would hate for me to say that, but I'm so proud. So I'm going to say it.
No, that's awesome. Congrats on that.
Yeah. Thank you. So it's just the old school hard work is paying off, and just working long hours. I barely slept, I had to do what I had to do to get to where I'm at today. And I think a lot of people assume, especially with me being on a reality real estate show, it happens to be the number one reality show, reality real estate show on Netflix. People think, oh, after that, we're going to be given business. No, we still have to build our business, and we still have to put ourselves out there. And I still prospect, and I still door knock, and I do all those things. Last year was a very hard market for the majority. I'm sure you're aware. The real estate market was hard for a lot of people. So a lot of agents had to go back to the basics, and that's basically what I did. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
that's good.
There you go.
Yeah. No, it's a good backstory. I think it gives people a good idea of who you are and what you do. And so now your main focus is on real estate, but you did mention a couple of things that were interesting to me. Like during this journey, from 17 to where you're at today, you had to do a couple things, and you had to realize that hard work was a part of the equation. I don't think that anything in the world can replace hard work. However, you can work smarter, not harder in some cases, but you have to put in the hard work first. I find you can't just be like lazy about everything. There is some aspects that are just hard work. You just got to do it. No choice. But then you can start getting efficient with your business, and you can start getting to the point where maybe you're only spending a couple hours a week or maybe 10 hours a week running your company because you've gotten so efficient at it and you've learned how to delegate and do all these different things. Now, another thing you talked about is mindset. So how did you develop your mindset to get where you're at right now? Because I'm sure you have a very different mindset than when you first started, and sometimes, I'm sure many people can relate that they grew up in a place where money was a taboo subject and they didn't really know how to talk about it. And it was maybe always with a negative connotation. And so they had to change their mindset around it, or maybe they're still changing their mindset. What did you do? Like, what steps did you take to change your mindset, and how has that affected your business?
Oh, I'm going to make this the quickest answer as I possibly can, because it was years and years and years of just unlearning everything I've ever known. Yeah. So once you unlearn everything, then you have to relearn different ways of thinking, being, acting, doing, right? So I had to let go of my old way of thinking about everything. And I really dove into personal development and just reading a lot of books. I was reading at least like one book a month. And then surrounding yourself with the right people. That's extremely important because you learn from them, right? So, and then also letting go of the wrong people in your life. And I think that's really difficult for a lot of people to really grasp. It's like, it got to a point where I was isolated for many, many years because I was just not in the right places, the right people, the right environments. And I just knew I had to let go of everything in order to make room for the new to come in. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. So first step, letting go of those old things and then creating space for the new things. So it sounds like a big part of your strategy was reading these books and surrounding yourself with the right people. So is that how you continue your education to this day? Is like reading books and maybe attending seminars? Is there anything else that you use, like maybe masterminds or certain mentors or consultants that you hire to help you improve that mindset?
All the above. Absolutely. I still do. Well, now I'm now a certified life coach. So now I'm running webinars and speaking at seminars, and I'm also a public speaker. And then, yes, constantly leveling up too with your mentors and coaches and investing into yourself. And I'm sure a lot of people hear that all the time, and it's so cliche, but it's so true. The most the most important investment is yourself. And so I think that is incredibly, incredibly important. And constantly it's almost like I got addicted to learning new things. And it's like, you have to, if you're not learning something every single day, like, what are you doing? You have to, right? So
yeah. Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. And I spend a lot of time and a lot of money to access like new information, to learn from somebody, for somebody to mentor me, to provide a place for me to learn something that's going to help me grow my business. And what I found, honestly, is that it's kind of it's one of those things where you know in the moment that, okay, I've reached this limit in my business in maybe this specific area. Now I need to hire somebody that can help me get past that hurdle and take things to the next level. And it's not anything like, it doesn't mean that you're a bad business person. It doesn't mean that you're not good at business at all. It's just, we need teams in order to build big things. I don't think anything big in this world has ever been built by one person. They always had a team supporting them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to do that on their own. So that's definitely great stuff. Now, if somebody's watching this and they're like, okay, so cool, I'm reading books every month. Now, how can I get around the right people? What was your strategy to get around the right people?
Going to as many seminars as possible, all those networking events, maybe in your local areas, and reaching out. Social media is a big, big tool, reaching out to like-minded people and just going to as many events as possible. And then just from there, you just meet the right people one after another. And then, that's really, I don't know if that's like old school, if there's a new school way of doing it, but that's how I've done it. Yeah. And it's worked very well for me.
And so you've leveraged social media as well to grow that circle that you're around?
Yeah, well, now I am. So I love how you mentioned about delegating. That is extremely important. I just started delegating this year, and I'm a little bit farther into my career as I would like, in the sense of like, I should have done that a long time ago. And I feel like I would have been a little bit farther in my career if I did that. So I just now started doing that. And I have been seeing extremely basically more growth, right? So now I have like a social media manager. Now I have an assistant. I have one for my business that goes and prospects for me when I'm not available. And then I have a personal assistant. So, and I'm starting to see more things happening, if that makes sense. So I totally where I was going with that. So delegating is extremely important. And when you are surrounding yourself with the right people, then you start meeting the people that can also be on your team that you can hire, right? So yeah, I would definitely say just go to as many events as possible.
How did you source these people that you're hiring? Are you like looking online? Are you posting job ads?
No, I'm not doing job ads. Actually, I just would post a story on my Instagram and be like, hey, I'm looking for this, and that. And people would respond. So
yeah,
that awesome. It's worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah. No, I've definitely done the same thing.
Yeah.
But social media is like a very powerful tool to do that. And the cool thing about that is that they're already familiar with you and who you are, and they understand your brand and your values and your style and all that stuff. And so there's immediately some sense of like cultural fit with you. So if they like you as a person, then they probably are going to be a pretty good cultural fit. If they just totally dislike you, like they're just not going to apply,
Right.
So it's kind of a nice filter as well. And I do like that, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's my resume up here in front of everybody. And if yours aligns with it and you want to be, my whatever, then come work for me. But you already know what you're getting yourself into. So there's no surprises.
I've definitely run into roadblocks with that, because there's a difference between people that genuinely want to work for you and help you and actually bring value versus people that are just fans and they just want to be around you and just say that they work for you.
You just have too many fans. That's what it is.
Well, but I've had to weed through those too as well. But I have a pretty good level of discernment, so I'm able to filter out what's fake and what's real.
So what's your fan filtering system?
Honestly, well, I have to meet them in person, obviously, and then I can feel it.
Yeah.
I'm very much like, I can tell. I can feel it. I can tell by their their answers when I ask them the right certain questions. I can tell by the way that they answer. I can tell with their body language. I can tell what's important to them, what's not. Because I go deep with my interviews. I go really deep. Like, what's important to you? What's your morals? What's your values? And just where they're at mentally. And I can figure it out pretty quickly. Give me like 10 minutes and I can figure it out.
Yeah, that's good. That's like, it's definitely a skill that's needed in hiring.
Yeah.
Because you need to know if that person's a good fit. Because at the end of the day, like, they're a representation of you.
Right.
And so if the only interaction that a client ever has with Kayla Cardona is your assistant or your social media manager, and it's not a good reflection of you, it's going to come back to you. So you want to make sure that it's all aligned and everybody's on the same page when doing those things. So that's important for me too. That's a lesson that I had to learn. I hired some people and I'm like, hey, well, maybe it's not a good reflection of the company or of me or my brand. So I need to replace them with people who may be more expensive, or maybe, it's going to be harder to get these people to work for me, but they're a better reflection of what we stand for. So, yeah. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is our potential as business people. Did you set goals like when you were first starting out that were like way off in the moon? Like, I want to be a trillionaire, figuratively speaking, but do I want to reach these massive, massive goals? Or were you more like bite-sized goals? Because people can go either way. I want to hit 1 million in revenue. I want to hit 5 million. I want to hit 10 million. Or some people are like, yeah, I just want to, if it's not 100 million, I'm not in, How did you go through that process?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. With the way that my life has gone, it has been so like, I didn't see that coming. Like I never thought I would ever be on a show. And so that show opened up so many doors. And then my goals or whatever it is that I want just expanded or it just changed. It got different. It became different. Like I knew I always wanted to get into some sort of like mentorship. I just didn't know I was going to become a certified life coach. Like that kind of just like developed over time. But I definitely I set goals. I don't know if there's like a specific way that I set goals. It's just, I don't know how to answer that actually. It's always changing, it's always changing. Actually, I've never had anyone ask that question. Maybe we can circle back to that because I don't know how to answer that. Yeah, because now I'm like speaking on stages and I didn't see that one coming because I've always been terrified to speak in especially huge audiences. And next thing I know, I'm on a huge stage with people like Tim Story in front of 5,000 people. And I'm like, how did I even get here? But I just knew I was meant to be there, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm not sure how to answer that.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I think a lot of people are in that same position as well. It's like, you didn't really expect life to go this far or like you didn't expect yourself to go this far. But I think that's one of the most like pleasant things about entrepreneurship is like, if you just start like, and I think a lot of people are in that position as entrepreneurs where they never even imagined that they would be where they're at until they started. And then things started growing and expanding and success started coming into their life because of their consistency and their work ethic and all those different things. And I think a lot of people just don't expect it. But the only way that you can even achieve those things is by starting. Right. And so they take that first step, they start working towards it, they start achieving those things, and then it goes further than they ever thought. And I think it's beautiful, because you realize that you can do so much more than you ever even thought. Even if you didn't have that goal in mind, you're still working hard, you're consistent, you're putting in the work, and you're achieving those things, which is, I think it's great. Yep. So the other thing I want to talk about is like when you're building a team, how do you identify your own strengths? Like you hired people to do specific things. Is it because you didn't want to do those things? Or is it because maybe you found somebody that's better? Like for me personally, I always try to find the best person at a specific, department and I hire them to do that thing. So how did you go through that process? How did you find out what you needed to hire for first?
I realized the areas that I was spending way too much time on that wasn't making me my money. Because at the end of the day, I need to focus on what is going to get me that paycheck. So
income producing activities.
Yes, thank you. And of course, that's like obviously in my real estate business. It's different in my life coaching business because that's not.
Still, there's some things that create revenue for you.
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah. But life coaching is kind of a different because I'm dealing with people versus like transactions, which real estate is working with other people. But I look at it very differently. Those are two different businesses, and I kind of switch hats when I switch. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So. It was, yes. How can I focus all my time on income producing jobs that I need to be doing, right? So I then started delegating out to areas that was wasting my time, such as social media, because I know that social media is part of building the businesses that I'm in. So I had to hire someone to handle getting all the content because that was taking up way too much of my time. Mm-hmm. And now I'm running, and I'm growing every single day. I'm running into a roadblock to where I'm spending way too much time on writing captions, for example. So now I need to find someone that is able to create and write captions for me because my problem, the reason why it took me so long to start hiring a team is because I was too much of a perfectionist. And I think a lot of people listening to this can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to let go and allowing a team to handle those things for you, especially when you're such a like OCD perfectionist and you need it to be a certain way. It is so important to learn how to you have to let go. Mm-hmm. You just have to. Otherwise, you're going to be doing everything and you're not going to go farther into your business if you try to do everything and being all the positions you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that I had to realize on my own. And I'm so stubborn. I've gotten a lot better not to be so stubborn. And I've just learned to just let it go and just
how did you train your mind to do that?
Just do it. The good old just do it. You just got to do it. And just learning to let go and just know that it's going to be okay as long as you hire the right people. I started, this is how much I'm such a control freak, or I was. I'm getting much better. I could only hire like family members because I've known them for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that they would never if I give them the password to a social media account, they won't like change it and run with it, right? So it took me some time. I'm still kind of struggling with that, but it's really just giving those positions to people that I know is needed to build my business. So, but to get to a point where I just focus on what's going to get me to that next transaction or paycheck.
Yeah, definitely. And, they say that good is the enemy of perfect. If we always try to be perfectionist, we may never start.
Mm-hmm.
And we're definitely not getting the reps in,
mm-hmm.
Because sometimes all it takes is just getting the reps in, doing it over and over and over again. And in the end, you will actually have a more perfect product than trying to pre-plan every single possible scenario and being way too perfect about it. And, in some scenarios, I think that makes sense. Like, for example, when it's legal matters, you definitely want to prepare for, hey, what could potentially happen? What is going to happen versus what could potentially happen in a good way or a bad way. So you want to protect yourself in that sense, but it's also about just taking that first step. So if somebody's watching this and maybe they're a perfectionist and they're like, hey, like my product needs to be perfect before I release it. I don't want it to be a failure, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if there's necessarily nobility in trying to do that, because at the end of the day, you are depriving people of ever receiving your product potentially because you failed to take that first step. So if somebody's watching this and they want to take that first step, what are some things you'd say to them?
Eliminate yourself from the equation. So just like what you said right now, perfectionism is basically people that they keep thinking about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when if you're running any kind of business, it's a service, right? So you cannot think about yourself. For example, I'm going to make a very Easy example. I used to be really nervous about going on stages, speaking in front of thousands and thousands of people, right? As soon as I realized that it's actually not about me, it's about me delivering a message that everyone in the audience needs to hear, my nervousness went away. And so when you eliminate yourself from that, and I think you mentioned this earlier, you think about what does the other person, like how can you service them? How can you help them? And if you don't do that, then you are depriving them of your services. And that also ties in with fear, you know, that's really the number one reason why people are hold back so much is because of fear of rejection, even fear of success. And, you know, I know that very well. I'm speaking from experience. I think I would have been a lot farther in all my careers if it wasn't for my perfectionism that got in the way. I was just, and then when you do it, it's like, gosh, why did I take so long? You know, and it does get easier. The more you do it, you just build calluses, and it does get easier. I mean, making the decision to do it gets easier. Your journey probably won't, but that's the beautiful thing about it, right? You just learn, you continue to learn along the way.
Yeah, I like what you said, that making that decision gets easier. And I know in certain things in my life, it's kind of like, you know, discipline. The first time you do it is hard. The 5th time you do it is hard. The 10th time you do it is hard. But you do it long enough and it's not hard anymore. It becomes kind of like a thoughtless action. And while yes, you should put thought into what you do, I think that conditioning ourselves to be able to do that thing, to get started, to take that risk, to move past our fears is very, very important. And it's a very underrated skill. So, you know, I think if we have the opportunity to get better at that in some way or train our mind, that is definitely something that can help us in business. And I know it's helped me tremendously. I tried to get that time between me having an idea and me executing on it as low as possible, because if I can shorten that time frame, I know that there's a strong correlation between that and my overall success. The shorter I can get that time between idea to action, the faster I'm going to see success in my business. And one of my favorite quotes is actually, everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. I think it's so beautiful because, like, if you think about it, all the things that we really truly want in life, they're usually like between us and that thing, there's fear. And we don't really know if it's going to work out, or what are people going to think of us? Or I really want to do this, but man, that's scary, you know? And so if we can get past that fear, really, it's just a matter of us committing to taking that action to get over fear and do the thing. And most of the time it's going to work out, you know. Now, sometimes of course it's not, but that's just life. And it's an opportunity to learn then. I really don't think that there are many losses in life. I think you either learn or you win. And in my mind, those are both wins. So anyways, another thing I wanted to talk about with you is like, as far as your ideas that you've had in your business, where would you say has been like the biggest inspiration for your career changes or for different ideas that you've had in your business? Is it just learning from mentors and books and stuff, or is it stuff that you come up on your own? Because a lot of people, they want to be creative, but maybe they don't quite know how to do that. Can you share some insight on that?
So what has been my inspirations?
What has been your inspiration, and how did you train yourself to consistently have like ideas and different things that you can implement in your business? How do you get inspired?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm not always inspired. I don't always wake up motivated. I think when you understand and know your reasoning behind your why, right? I do know that my end goal is to open up women's shelters. That's my end goal. And so everything that I'm doing leading up to that point is getting me ready for that. Great. So the women's shelters, I used to live in shelters. I think I mentioned that in the beginning. And I've noticed that it's a very broken system. They have you go in and they teach you and they have you do classes that have nothing to do with real life, like cooking classes or Bible study, which is important, but all the things that doesn't get you ready for the outside world and how to make it, right? They don't teach you how to get a mortgage. They don't teach you how to manage money. They don't teach you all the important things. So what's end up happening is that these women they end up going back into the shelter. And the whole point is to get them ready and set up to go out in the real world to succeed so they don't have to go back to the shelter, right? So me being a life coach, me really getting... I'm still in the beginning stages of my real estate career, even though, yes, I sold a big listing or, I have obviously my clientele right now and all the things, but, it's diving into that world and understanding it in every angle so that I can eventually become a real estate agent to a real estate investor, and then being able to purchase property to be able to open those shelters. And then in the meantime, I'm a life coach now, and I know how to speak, because before I would slur on my words. I have mild dyslexia. It's very hard. I always had a very tough time learning. So every single thing I'm doing now is getting me to that point. So just remembering, what is your end goal? And then reminding yourself every day when you don't wake up inspired, when you don't wake up feeling motivated, because it's not going to happen every single day. So just understanding what that end goal is and reminding yourself every single day. And I'm a mom. That's the most important thing. My son is watching everything that I do. He's here right now, so it's also being that role model for him, and really for the world too.
Yeah. Definitely. No, I totally understand what you're saying there. So let's talk a little bit about social media, reality TV. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Netflix and what that did for your business?
Well, definitely opened a lot more doors. It's allowed me to meet people that I probably wouldn't have met before on much bigger platforms. And the experience as far as like filming the show, that gives
everything from getting reached out to filming to release, like just walk us through that whole process. Like how did they even find you?
Filming, well, they found me on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, they reached out to me on Instagram.
Yeah.
And
like the official Netflix account just like DM'd you?
A producer.
Oh, okay.
And I thought it was a total scam.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, delete. And I totally, but then they ended up finding my email and they emailed me. And then of course I looked it up because there was a signature at the bottom, and I was like, oh, this is actually real. But the whole process, it was during COVID, so everything was like super delayed. But the filming part was, I would say, it was because it was a new experience. It was fun for the most part. But the other side of that, it was extremely stressful because the drama is real and the people are really crazy and you're dealing with all of that, right? So, and I've never dealt with that before. I've always been, I guess you can say, lone wolf. I've been a single mom. I've worked 2-3 jobs at once. And so I didn't really have time to go out or make friends because I had a son to feed, so I've never dealt with that ever before, dealing with people with such strong personalities. But I'm not gonna lie, I still get PTSD just thinking about it, just because it's a lot. It was a lot,
What was the show called?
Selling the OC.
Selling the OC.
You should know this, Austin.
I don't really watch too much Netflix.
Me neither. Honestly, I didn't even have a TV until when my show came out. I was like, well, I would kind of like to enjoy watching this with an actual TV. But even today, I don't really watch much.
Yeah.
The same way.
So if somebody watching this is like, man, I really want to get on Netflix, what do they need to do? Do they need to DM producers?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I don't have no idea, to be honest. I mean, I guess you could, but
you did see an impact of all this on your business though, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And so how else have you leveraged social media? I know you're using Instagram. Are you getting leads off of Instagram, or are you just building partnerships or advertising? What exactly do you use that for?
Everything that you just mentioned. Leads as far as real estate, no. I think some people think that I would get leads off of for real estate on social media, and that has not been the case. Well, actually, I have gotten some business, but it's weird. It's like all out of state. But then I get referral fees and all the things. But social media has been really good for building my coaching program, my coaching business.
Okay, so Kayla, before we wrap up here, the last question I have for you is, you mentioned you have a coaching program. Can you walk us through a little bit about like what you talk about in that program? Is there maybe a specific system you follow or a format that people can understand a little bit more?
Yeah. So right now I have my 6-month coaching program, which is a group coaching program. And it basically covers all around mindset. So it basically identifies where you're at now and where you want to be and everything in between, but also being accountability partners, right? I just think about what I needed when I first started my business. And it was an opportunity for me to get a group of people together versus like one-on-one coaching. Because what I found with one-on-one coaching is all of a sudden I become someone's therapist or psychologist, and that's just not what I do.
Yes.
It's very, very draining. So I just created this coaching program for anyone to join, which I'm still in the beginning stages. So anyone can join if you just reach out to me. I'm mostly active on my Instagram, which is at MS Kayla Cardona. And then in about a week or so, I don't know when this is going to air, but kaylacardona.com will be my website, and everything will be on that website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really great to hear about your real estate experiences and other entrepreneurial endeavors, and especially your journey, to where you're at today and achieving this level of success. It's just great to hear. And I think it's going to help a lot of people also take that journey of entrepreneurship and creating a better business. So thank you guys all for joining us. This is Better Business with Austin Zelan, and I'll see you all in the next episode.